Hi there! VideoGaming Father here with video review of tower defense game with historical background called Defense of Roman Britain. Can one find any catching story based on historical events in the game? Can it be considered an educational game in learn-by-playing style? Is it just a common tower defense game, or are there any refreshing new ideas enhancing the traditional gameplay? Are there variable and interesting enemies standing against you? And do you have original and upgradable defense structures at your disposal? Can one find a balanced economic model in the game? Isn't the game incredibly difficult, or on the contrary too piece of cake-ish? Are the game graphics, music and sounds able to please your senses, or will they rather hurt them? Just bear with me for the next few minutes to answer all these questions and get the essential information about the game. One would expect some love, hate and revenge story from the times of glory of the great Roman Empire, and maybe to even meet some famous people from that historical period. That sounds nice, doesn't it? But temper your expectations, please. You will get the story, but only very loosely based on the events from that era. It has been more than 10 years since the first Roman legions landed in Britannia. Celts and Brits tried to resist, but the Roman army was stronger. Most of Britannia's territory has been captured, but the war continues. You, as a young Roman patrician, will take part in suppression of rebellious tribes. This will not be easy because the tribes are led by caricatures and druids. The story is developed as you progress through the game, but only the text dialogues led by the soldier who is likely chief commander of your army, and your beautiful advisor called Julia explaining you the main game mechanics and principles and also describing the current events. It's still better than nothing, but on the other hand, I think that the authors have really great historical background at their disposal that they could build up a better story on. Like this, you would be likely still reading it but without any proper interest. Let's have a look if the devs have done better with a more important part of the game, the gameplay. The gameplay of Defense of Roman Britain is similar to most tower defense games. In each level you can find a predefined path leading from one end of the screen to another, along with predefined places where you can build your defense structures. There can be one or more entry points where the game spews hordes of enemy units. They try to survive their trip on the path of death and reach the exit point, which can be just the other end of path or some structure like the fort or mine. You usually have 30 plus lives, so there is quite a lot of space to successfully finish the level. You earn coins for eliminating enemies that you use for buying the new defense structures or upgrading the existing ones. Each tower can be upgraded 3 times, and each upgrade gives it higher damage, fire rate, and also some special ability on the higher levels of upgrade. You also have 3 types of special weapons at your disposal that you can buy at the shop, and 3 spells with cooldowns that you get as you proceed through the game. They usually serve as an emergency brake when your towers cannot handle the incoming hordes of enemies. For successfully accomplished missions, you get the diamonds that you can use to buy upgrades for your defense structures or for upgrades of spells and special weapons. The amount depends on how successful you were in the mission, which is classified by the classic 3-star system. It sounds just like another tower defense game that each player who likes this genre has seen many times before, right? So let's take a look if there is something that distinguishes the game from many others. The first thing is that there are some special missions where you need to protect convoys rather than preventing enemies from reaching the end of the path. Once the enemy encounters some member of the convoy, it is destroyed immediately, along with the enemy of course, and you lose 1 life. It's a good idea indeed, but it's a bit spoiled by the fact that sometimes the enemies have it really close to your convoy, so your towers have almost no chance to eliminate all of them before they reach some member of your convoy. Especially because the convoy is quite slow. There are plot levels that are mandatory to complete, and also some bonus levels that you can play if you want, but their accomplishment is not necessary to finish the game. It's a good idea, but the thing is that so-called bonus missions do not differ much from the common ones. You only need to build more structures as you face bigger hordes of enemies. So another good idea that just stayed halfway through to bring some real benefit. You also get the special quest from your advisors, which mostly consist of getting your defense structures to some level or being awarded by 3 stars in determined number of consecutive missions. Again, good idea, but the authors could use more imagination when it comes to the quest tasks. What else is here? Well, just the small things that maybe cannot be seen in every tower defense game, but can hardly be considered super original. You can cut down the trees when they start shaking by multiple clicks on them, which gives you some additional money. Your enemies can do the same from time to time, which opens them an additional and usually shorter way to reach their goal. There are also spots usually on strategic positions that you need to modify first by simply paying the money to be able to build some defense structures there. And the last one that I have noticed is an already built tower with archer in some levels that can be upgraded for a big amount of money. And that's all, folks. What kind of enemies will you be facing, and what kind of weapons will you have at your disposal for their elimination? Let's start with your defense structures. There is a ballista that causes average damage but has a high fire rate and is efficient mainly against the enemy's infantry and is also able to shoot at air targets. Trebuchet causes massive damage to clusters of enemies and has high range. On higher levels it throws lava stones making additional fire damage. Very useful weapons to cover the path entrances where enemy units usually enter in big groups. Jupiter Lighting causes continuous electric damage to all nearby enemy units and has an average rate of fire and average rate. Although being a rather fantasy weapon, it's also very useful. Poisonous gas doesn't cause big damage but slows down enemies. Flamethrower on the other hand causes quite big damage, especially to wooden units. Archers are causing low damage but have a high fire rate and poisoned arrows at the highest level. Plus, they can also attack flying units. And that's mostly it if I don't count the units that the convoys consist of that cannot be controlled directly. For each defense structure you can upgrade its damage, fire rate, action radius, chance of critical hit and the damage caused by it. Interesting thing is that it's being done by the gears that you either get for each successful mission or you can buy them in the shop for collected diamonds. Why is it so interesting? Because you can buy the gear at maximum level from the very beginning if you have enough diamonds for it. Okay, it's quite expensive, so it's not likely that you will buy it after the first few levels, but you can still get it in the early phases of the game, so it's up to your decision if you boost some weapon to the maximum in one category or if you will be upgrading your weapons equally. The strange thing is that you never know which gears you will get after an accomplishment mission and what level they will be at. If you get Jupiter gear that increases the damage on level 3, but you already have the same on level 4+ in all of your weapons, you can only sell it for a low price. The number of diamonds you get after each mission is determined by the basic reward that you can see in mission description and also by reward for completed quests. As the upgrades are quite expensive, you should try to complete as many quests as possible. There are also 3 weapons at your disposal: lightning, dynamite and landmine that you can upgrade, but it's not too valuable as they cause only small damage to enemy units. Well, maybe except for lighting that can eliminate several units at once. You also have 3 spells with cooldowns: Fire Rain, Firebomb and Ice Bomb, but again, only the first one is really useful. In general, the economic model is quite balanced if you primarily focus on weapons upgrades and gives you enough space for deciding whether to boost your favorite weapon to the maximum in early stages of the game or better upgrade all available weapons gradually. As for the enemy units, called Barbarians in ancient Roman tradition, there are plenty of them. You can find their infantry units like slow and weak Examans, Hammermans and Sword Warriors, weak but fast archers, slow and armored infantrymen, turtle formation where the group of foot soldiers is covered behind the shields that you need to destroy first, and only after that you need to destroy the infantry. Then there are the druids that are slow but provide nearby friendly units the energy fields, particularly protecting them from the damage. They are weak to electricity. The strong elder druid can temporarily freeze the weapons and create portals making shortcuts for enemy units, but you can easily destroy them by fast clicking on them. Then there are cavalry units, fast cavalry vulnerable to electric attacks, very fast chariots and slow but heavily armored war mammoths. Really? In the time of ancient Rome? That are protected against electric attacks. Then there are battering ram and siege towers that are slow but armored and hide marines. As they are made of wood, they are vulnerable to fire. You need to remember that all these cavalry and moving units have actually 2 lives because you need to destroy the basic structure, means animal, chariot or tower first, and then surviving infantry that still marches to the exit. Then comes the flying units, slow air balloons and fast heavy balloons that can only be destroyed by archers or ballistas. The thing is that you never know their path, so you need to have equally covered all battlefield by the defense structures that can shoot them down. In the water levels there are also naval units, rafts and ships that can land and disembark infantry, so you also need to have your coastal line well covered. There are also the modifications of many units in later levels with better armor or more horses in the chariot, making it faster. The variability of enemies is really big, which makes you think strategically and combine all defense structures. I have only found enemy units quite anonymous. Maybe some characteristic one-liners and better graphical distinction would make them more interesting. Like this, Axemen, Hammermen or Archers look all the same to me. And besides this, if you check the game wiki, you find out that you discover most of the enemies during the first few levels. So the game misses the element of surprise in later levels. How about the game difficulty and controls? Defense of Roman Britain is not an overly difficult game. The levels are short and you earn enough money to build enough defense structures and upgrade them soon. I would say that the game is as difficult as you make it for yourself by distributing the permanent upgrades between your defense structures. There are some irritating things though. I have already mentioned the convoys and big groups of enemy units suddenly appearing close to it, so you have almost no chance to eliminate all of them before they destroy some part of the convoy. You also never know the path of air units, so it might happen that you won't have enough archers and ballistas along their path, but not by your fault. Unpredictability is the game minus in general. It happens quite often that enemy soldiers make a shortcut cutting more than half of the path for them, or disembark in 1/3 of the path, making most of your defense structures useless against them, and you need to face them with just 2 or 3 towers, as there were no more places where you could build them along the path of the road. Otherwise, you are able to manage even the big waves of enemies by clever placement or right defense structures and upgrading them when needed. The game is also quite benevolent and gives you 3 stars even if you lose 1/3 of lives. As for the controls, you control everything by your mouse and the interface is quite user-friendly and intuitive, so you can get to all desired actions immediately. Let's take a look at the game audio visual. The game graphics are colorful and cute with many effects like electric discharge, fire, lightning and so on. I would only appreciate some better distinction between the infantry units, as most of them looked almost the same to me. The music with its battle motifs is atmospheric, but there are only few music tracks, so it starts to repeat too soon. Sounds are also solid. You will be hearing electric discharges, shooting trebuchets, screaming mammoths, running chariots with horses and many other sounds. I was just missing some typical one-liners or battle screams by enemies units that would make the game more atmospheric. So let's summarize it now. Does Defense of Roman Britain deserve to be chosen for playing among many other similar tower defense games? One can find some positive speaking in its favor. An attractive historical background, some original ideas like convoys, prisons of quests, interesting systems of weapon upgrades, big number of enemy unit types, solid economic model, challenging yet not frustrating difficulty, user-friendly interface and nice graphics. However, there are also many downsides. Not very interesting story and its presentation, some enemies approach your convoy almost immediately, some shortcuts cut more than half of the path for enemies, special weapons and spells are not very effective, the game plays almost all its cards in the first few levels, so there is not much to discover later, low differences between enemies' infantry units, unpredictability of air units' paths, only few music tracks and the absence of dubbing. Thanks to easy accessibility and simple mechanics, the game is suitable for playing with kids that can learn something about the history and develop their strategic thinking. The game costs €6 on Steam, and I would recommend waiting for at least 50% discount this time. Defense of Roman Britain brings some refreshing ideas to the genre, but most of them seems to be half-baked or unfinished. The game is not historically accurate at all, but still can provide at least some basic imagination of how people lived in the first centuries of our age, and that Britain was part of the Roman Empire once. Despite all its flaws, the game was still able to attract my attention for a while, so I am giving Defense of Roman Britain thumbs up and VideoGaming Father's index 6 out of 10. Recommended with discount. Thank you for spending your time by watching this video review, and please don't forget about thumb up and subscribing to my VideoGaming Father's channel if you have enjoyed it. Bye bye!